Radical.
I can't believe this. I just can't believe this move that the WWE would make. Now, this is the time of year after WrestleMania where there's usually some cuts. Usually some budget cuts. I don't really exactly know why, because year after year, the WWE seems to be posting record profits. But I guess this is just part of the business, is they trim the fat. They cut wrestlers, both male and female, that, I don't know, just maybe are not getting over, or they don't use, or they don't need. This time, though, this is a definite 100% head scratcher. The fact that the WWE, Triple H, TKO, whoever you blame, has let go of R-Truth. The Truth, Ron Killings. Before I get into this commentary, I want to ask you a question, unrelated to this. My lights on my computer seem to be going haywire. I don't know what the hell's going on. It's a CyberPower PC. On the very top, there's a button you press in to turn it off. I turned it off various times, and now it seems to be cycling through, going through all the colors. And this is just crazy. I don't know what the hell is going on. Maybe if I restart the computer, it'll go back to normal, but it's just very distracting. And also, a bit of sad news, the voice actor for John Redcorn from King of the Hill apparently was killed, which is very sad. That reminds me, though, I need to do a commentary on the revival of King of the Hill. Very excited about that. And also, Elon Musk apparently taking tons of drugs. So he's a huge drug addict. That explains his insane behavior. But yeah, talking about Ron Killings, R-Truth. This guy, I think he's legitimately the very last person actively on that roster from the Attitude Era. Because, I mean, the Attitude Era, a lot of people will look at from maybe the late 90s to very early thousands. You think about the Kane, the Undertaker, the Road Dogg Jesse James, Val Venus. You know, a lot of people from that Attitude Era, and it was a big boom. You know, you have the rise of The Rock. I would guess, well, if The Rock wrestles again, he would be the very last from the Attitude Era. A couple years ago, you had Stone Cold at WrestleMania. But I would say active, regular performer, it's the end of an era officially. It is the end of the Attitude Era in WWE, because they have not fired R-Truth, but they're going to let his contract just kind of go away. Like, they're not re-upping his contract. This is a head scratcher. A lot of people thought, because of the nature of R-Truth, and if you don't know much about wrestling and you don't know much about the WWE, maybe, you know, you're heavy into other things like video games or movies or music, fair enough. This is not for everybody. So I know a lot of you don't even know who R-Truth is. But let me explain. Now, you are familiar with wrestlers. Everybody knows wrestlers like Hulk Hogan from the past, John Cena, The Rock. You know about certain wrestlers. You've heard probably of Randy Orton, RKO, and all that kind of stuff. This is not a main event talent, but this is 100% a talented wrestler. Talented in the ring, talented on the mic, just so good. Such a good, I mean, he's not a technical wrestling genius, but he's very athletic. I like watching his wrestling matches, but mostly people just love his personality, man. In a time when WWE has so many characters that are so bland and fucking boring and lack personality, R-Truth was one of the last ones that actually had some personality. And it was comedy, right? In the past, there's been funny characters like Santino Marella and the Snake and whatnot. But the thing about R-Truth was, I would call him basically a, kind of like a jack of all trades. Maybe that's not fair enough, because they say jack of all trades, master of none, because he was a master of comedy and comedic timing. I would say just a lock-in guy. Like, you could lock him into any situation, any match. You can make him a funny character. You can make him a serious character. He just had that kind of range. Years ago, I know Vince is no longer with the company, but R-Truth was one of the only people that could legitimately make Vince laugh, and he always re-upped his contract. thought highly of by management, fellow wrestlers. There's so many things I could talk about and go into here, but I'm not going to. This is just such a head scratcher. It's so shocking. Like, everybody loved this guy. He was so good. He's so good on the mic. He was good in the ring. He got a reaction out of the crowd when now at this point, a lot of wrestlers don't even get a reaction. When people heard R-Truth's music, they just got so excited. I mean, he was in a Judgment Day angle to where he thought he was a member of the Judgment Day. One of his comedic things is he gets really confused about stuff. He gets things mixed up. He gets names mixed up. He even gets the names mixed up of where he's going to, you know, like he's in different cities or states. But the funniest thing here lately that I've heard him say was, he said he was a childhood, John Cena was his childhood hero. And this is hilarious because R-Truth is like a decade older than John Cena. He doesn't look it. He looks like he's in his early 30s. The guy, he doesn't look old at all. But he's older than John Cena. And he talks about how he looked up to John and he's his childhood hero. And that's just absolutely hilarious. I think somebody in an interviewer asked him, how is that so? And how is he your childhood hero? I mean, how did you watch him as a child? And he said, I watched him on the TV. He didn't, I'm butchering it, but the way he said was so funny. Like, there was a pause and he said, like, on the TV. That's how I watched him. Avoiding the whole logic going out the window that how's he going to be your childhood hero if you're a decade older than him? And when it comes to merch, he was a merch mover when they had some merch out. He had, his last brilliance was, I don't know if he came up with it or other people did, or maybe John had the idea. He called himself Ron Cena. Ron Cena, and then he mimicked John Cena when he came out. He had shirts saying the last time, the retirement tour, and then even the match, he even gave John Cena the 5-knuckle shuffle. He gave an attitude adjustment. He didn't go over though, because John, kicked him in the nuts, of course, and that's how he wins his matches now, not with anything other than a nut shot. That's really John Cena's finisher right now, the heel John Cena, just nut shot. And after that, I think he had a squash match, not for him, but he got squashed by some wrestler, I'm not sure. So he did a job for somebody on the way out, which is weird, because they couldn't, if that was his last match, they couldn't let that be his last match with John Cena. Now, could that feud have continued? Was he really going to go over John Cena and beat him? I thought he was going to be an element to eventually, when John Cena eventually, before he retires, goes face again and becomes a good guy, because he's not going to end his career being a bad guy. I thought R-Truth could actually have a role in that. That's what I was thinking. This makes no sense. In fact, this makes such little sense. There were people backstage, and a lot of people in his fan base, that thought it was just a work or a joke, because they thought, okay, June the 1st, he probably got it confused with April the 1st, 2 months later, and thought he would do the joke, because that's part of like his shtick. He's just completely like out of sorts, and he gets things wrong, dates wrong, times wrong. But no, it's not. And he had I don't have it right in front of me, but he had a good statement to everybody, talk about how he appreciated everybody, and you know how they go, these statements go. But I'm sure it was from the heart that he appreciated his time in WWE, but something just doesn't feel right about this. It feels so wrong because, you see, this guy had been with WWE, not consistently, but since the late 90s, like I said. His contract was always re-upped. He went to TNA for a brief period of time, but came back and had been in the company for 17 years. 17 years. So you could say it's a cost-cutting measure. I mean, maybe he was making more than a lot of the other talent there. And you could also say, well, they looked at his age and said, how many more good years does he have in him? Which is bullshit, though, because he moves better than John Cena right now, currently. And a lot of it could have been the years and years of John Cena, of course, taking those special vitamins to keep his muscles all plump. and good looking. He's kind of shrunk down a little bit right now. That catches up with you, those special vitamins. But yeah, he moves in the ring really good. Good on the mic. Sells merch. The crowd loves him. Loved backstage. Could be a message maybe being sent to everybody there, like, hey, no one's safe. But that's a crazy message. And this is terrible for morale in the company. Because if they see this, and you're a wrestler, what are you going to think? If R-Truth, beloved person by the fans, by the audience, by everyone in the back, by the management, if you have a beloved person like R-Truth, of all people, that's going to get the axe and not get re-upped, someone that still has a whole lot of value to the company. I mean, he was just in a main event. The guy was just in the main event. Maybe that was like a good parting gift to him, and that's how they wanted to, show him they appreciated him. But still, that's kind of a weird appreciation. Like, okay, John Cena, hits you in the nuts, pins you, and then you're out. But you can make an argument that's a good, mostly last match or last big angle for him to be in. But you're telling me that they couldn't maybe give him a smaller contract or say, well, you're 53 right now. We have a lot of talent up and coming. We just kind of want you to be more of maybe you could be a manager or something, or maybe you could be you could do something. There's so much outpouring support by a lot of the fellow wrestlers. I think even the Road Dogg, who's there in not a wrestling capacity because he's older now, I think the Road Dogg actually had to remove one of his tweets or something, some of his posts about him, and I don't even know why. Maybe it was, maybe he was scared or something. I'm not sure. What I do know is, going forward, if this is not a work, okay, I'm just going to bring this in here as a possibility. I don't know what I titled this upload. I might titled it, what if this is a work? A work in wrestling terminology is something where you're working over the fans to make them think something. Or let's say when you have two people that seem to have a lot of heat, and then it gets leaked conveniently that they have a lot of heat backstage, and then they turn that into a program, but the two people, they're perfectly fine with each other. This could be actually a work, which would be great and brilliant, and I hope it's a work. This could be brilliant to where they get the fans up in an uproar, and I don't know what the reasoning behind it would be. Possibly, I hope it's a work. I haven't really worked out the work, but there's ways they could go about the story. Maybe he comes back trying to get his job back, and maybe he gets angry, or I don't know. But it could be possibly that. I don't think it's that, though. Because Carlito actually got removed also, meaning his contract's not re-upped. But honestly, between R-Truth and Carlito, I don't know. Carlito, I could see Carlito getting removed, but R-Truth, come on now. All this outpouring of support, all these other fellow wrestlers, just shocked by this. Unless they're all in on it too, in the work. But sadly, I don't think it's a work. I think he's actually out of WWE, which is really terrible. Because he's been a workhorse, he's been a loyal company guy. And just because he's maybe not on that top tier like a Randy Orton or a John Cena, who's leaving anyways pretty soon, they don't keep him. Now, you have John leaving pretty soon. You can't tell me, you're not telling me that maybe, as a big fan of John Cena, you can't maybe have R-Truth, at least for a little while, maybe take over John's gimmick? What do you think about it? R-Truth is a rapper. He's really over with the crowd. Hell, maybe he could be a better version of John Cena. Maybe Ron Cena could be the successor to John Cena. Anybody ever think about that? I didn't before just now. That would make a lot of sense. If this is a work, he comes back and maybe John Cena talks about how he's getting older, he has things to move on to, and then it could be an inside joke to where, he says he's getting older, then Ron's like, Yeah. You need a young upstart like me to maybe, take your place here. The guy's funny. Okay, Little Jimmy, did I touch upon Little Jimmy? Little Jimmy? You might be thinking, like, touch upon who's Little Jimmy? What? His Little Jimmy? No, the guy is such a comedic fucking genius. He created a character, Little Jimmy, that did not exist. He had an imaginary friend in his head that he would bring to the matches. Look up videos of R-Truth Little Jimmy. It is so freaking funny. Like, he's way too good for WWE. That's what he's just way too good for these people. If they actually fired him, then fuck them. There's a big backlash. Again, I don't know what I'm going to title this, but there's a huge backlash within WWE to the firing of R-Truth. Not just from talent, which probably can't, they don't want to get fired too, though they can only say so much. I'm sure a lot of them are pissed about this. But I wonder, I don't know, there was a lot of people saying that on Raw, I didn't get to see it, but the possibility is the audience could have taken over and started chanting R-Truth, which is interesting. I'm not sure if the crowd starts to chant R-Truth, especially whenever they see maybe John Cena come out. What happens there? Are they going to silence the crowd? For a long time, when CM Punk was gone, for years and years and years, the crowd chanted CM Punk. This is not going to be on quite that level, but I don't think the fans are going to easily forget R-Truth. Last thing, it's not like he doesn't have options. TNA and AEW should be salivating to get a chance to sign R-Truth. I mean, this would be a big pickup. Because like I said, he, outside of WWE, he's still a talented fella. So he's still great on the mic, so he could be a main eventer. Definitely in TNA, and used to be in TNA. He could be a main eventer in AEW. And one cool thing is he actually owns his own theme music. Now, he can't use the name R-Truth. He could use Ron Killings. But come on, everyone knows who it is. Or he could just call himself The Truth. But he owns his music. And I guess he's a free man, unless this is a work. So it might be better for him. This might actually be a blessing in disguise, even though a lot of people don't want to hear that. But what if he goes to one of these other promotions and becomes a main event guy and gets a title? That'd be a kind of cool way to end his career, because he is in his 50s, so, what's he got, like 5-10 years at the most left? Even though he's in great condition, at some point, your body is going to break down, But yeah, that's my thoughts on this. Just truly, like I said, shocking. I don't understand it. Unless it's a work, this is a really terrible move by WWE. Most of these firings, when they let people go, sometimes there's people for a little bit going, damn, why'd you let that person go? That doesn't make any sense. But this might be the worst release ever when it comes to the fan backlash.